What's up, it's your big homie, Edie Amin, a.k.a. Edie Dom.
Young Noble, outlaw for life, kicking with the homie Fonzie. BDTV, man, and it's outlaw for life. Machiavelli live on, Killer Gaddafi live on.
So some may be familiar with the Chronic from Death Row Records, but in May the 4th, 1999, the Chronic 2000 was released by the label with Suge Knight subsequently being in prison, but the album as a compilation album was released. Some people say it was a slight at Dr. Dre, who had been planning to release his album entitled The Chronic 2000, which was changed to Chronic 2001. So this album itself peaked at number 3 at the Billboard R&B and Hip Hop Albums chart, and it featured music from Tupac, Treach from Naughty by Nature, The Dog Pound, E40, DJ Quik, Scarface, and Banks, to name a few, and many others from the upcoming new edition of the Death Row Rasta. So the Chronic 2000 still Smokin, definitely capitalized on good marketing at the time, with it being a name and a title, people being affiliated with, seeing Suge Knight, Death Row here in the Chronic. And I guess there was even some anticipation that Dr. Dre had an album coming out called Chronic 2000 also, which we did mention the title was changed. That was Dre's original name title, which was anticipated for his second album, but Suge Knight took it and used it, and it forced Dre to retitle his album to 2001. So this album was released May the 4th, 1999, so we're looking at the anniversary from it. And the album itself, it had who's who from Death Row at the time, with the Realest, Swoop G, Lil C-Style, Soopafly, Jewell, Danny Boy, Outlawz, Daz, Kurupt. Had a bit of everybody. It featured Mac Sean quite heavily, Miilkbone. Had a few different artists that people might not have been familiar with, or some that you may have been familiar with, but they came together quite well. It was an interesting compilation. The album itself, it sold quite well. Didn't get a lot of positive reviews as such when it came to critics. So, I mean, what do you guys think of the Realest? What do you think of Top Dog? Did you guys hear this album? Check it out. Let us know your thoughts in the comments. I think a highlight to me who stood out on this album was Mac Sean. He definitely had a lot of dope tracks that he was on with the Realest and stuff, and even with Daz. They kind of got together on a few of them that, you know, they put some dope tracks together. It's Going Down, to me, was one of them that I thought was definitely Smokin. Now, one thing a lot of people brought up about this album, they felt that it had a lot of disses towards Snoop Dogg, and it featured the Realest, who a lot of people have labeled as a fake or a faux Tupac. So the Realest was definitely all over a lot of songs, as was YGD, the Top Dog, who some people see as like a slight at Snoop Dogg. He had a track on there called Cinderfella. Snoop had a song on his Top Dog No Limit album called Snoopafella. And this album actually had quite a few disses towards Snoop and No Limit, namely from the Realest, Swoop G, Lil C-Style. They had a song called Don't Forget Where You Came From, which was a Snoop Dogg diss. They had Easy to Be a Soldier When There Ain't No War, which was quite a dope track. They had the Realest, Swoop G, and Lil C-Style. And at the time, I didn't really hear so much people dissing No Limit and such like that, but it was definitely geared towards, it was two versions. The first version I ever heard of it was on the Death Row Uncut DVD. They had a scene which had a small version of it with, I believe it was Lil C-Style's verse, which could have been changed on the album version. Production from Kurt Cobain, LT Hutton, DJ Quik. The Tupac track on there was Late Night, which is, you know, a classic, definitely a dope one. But what I always found interesting was there's a track on there, number 15, from Daz Dillinger called Roll With Us. And he's actually shouts out No Limit and shouts out a lot of different people on that track. So I always thought it was quite an interesting compilation that it's got a track or a few tracks on there where they're dissing Snoop and No Limit. And then it's got a Daz track on there where he's bigging them up. So we can tell it was probably a decision by the label just to compile the tracks that they did and put them together. A lot of production, as I said, from Daz Dillinger, J Flex, Johnny J on the Who Do You Believe In song with Tupac and Gaddafi. Who else got production credit on this? Predominantly Kurt Cobain for some of the newer stuff, and the stuff with Danny Boy and Jewell and the Death Row artists at the time, the Realest and Top Dog. So ultimately, how would you guys rank this double disc from Death Row? If you haven't checked it out, you can check it out. I believe it should be on digital platforms. Well, potentially, as Snoop Dogg is now the new owner of Death Row Records and has apparently taken down the catalog to put them out as NFTs. But yeah, this double disc compilation was their second compilation after the Two Gangsta for Radio compilation, which I'm going to cover at some point because that features some interesting tracks, namely from the Realest, who had a track on there entitled F Hollywood. And when we think of some of the stuff we see in Hollywood now, especially with the Will Smith scenario and stuff, there was a lot of things that was mentioned on that track that now people are probably saying, oh, could have been true. So yeah, the Death Row, they continue to release stuff with the Realest, Swoop G, Lil C-Style, bringing in Crooked Eye, Eastwood, and a few others would have been the direction going forward, but they weren't about at this time for this album, so it's quite like an intermediary album going through the stages before Death Row got to their next incarnation where they brought in a whole bunch of new talent of Rasta. So what did you guys think of the album? Did you think it was just? Do you think it was just put together to throw some shade out there? I definitely bumped it. It was one that was in my hip-hop collection. And I should also mention he had a lot of skits throughout the album, like it was being hosted. So another small detail point. But we out on this one. Peace.
It's cracking. I'm out here in the UK on the Strata Compton tour, man. Much love. And you know you rocking with, man. It's Lil Easy and we about that online. So we finna get it cracking, man.
Peace, family. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and check us out on aboutthatonline.com. Don't forget to check us out on Facebook for exclusive playlists and social media for all different types of segments and content.